Alright everyone, how are we doing? It's Wednesday and this is Celtic AM. We've got another roundup for you today. A few things happening that we can talk about. Mainly Celtic related, bit of pranking in there as well, stay tuned for that. And some chat about the SFA, refereeing, VAR, all of that kind of nonsense. Yeah, we're at Wednesday. We're half a week into the international break, technically, but the international football hasn't actually begun yet. We do have a number of players away, as we covered yesterday, so there'll be plenty to keep an eye on over the next week or so. But yeah, I think we're all just looking forward to Celtic returning away to Livingston in 10 days or so's time. Before then, though, a few things to cover, as I say. And I say before then, but it's actually after then, because we're talking about pre-season next year, and in the last few days, on the last few of our videos, we've been discussing our trip to the United States. We now know the full makeup of that trip in the summer, and it will start with a game against MLS opposition in the shape of DC United. Now that game, which takes place on Saturday the 20th of July, will happen at their 20,000 Audi Field. Yeah, not bad. We will then take on Manchester City in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, as someone predicted yesterday on the channel. What's the saying? A broken clock is right twice a day. I guess I'm right once in a lifetime. I got something right. Yeah, Tuesday, July the 23rd. And that match will take place at the 50,000 Kennan Stadium, which is pretty cool. Tickets will go on sale a week today, I noticed the club saying, with proceeds from the match benefiting UNC Children's Hospital, which is great. That side of it's great, you know, the charity side. I may require counselling after watching Erling Haaland take on Liam Scales and Stephen Welsh, but I guess it is only pre-season, so, you know, we can deal with that. Finally, the match that we knew about yesterday, a clash against Chelsea at the Notre Dame Stadium in Indiana. That's on Saturday the 27th of July. So DC United, former club of Freddie Adu. Don't ask me why I've remembered that or what Freddie Adu is up to. What age do you think Freddie Adu is now? He's going to be something ridiculous, like 49 or something like that. Because he was like 17 back in the day. Freddie Adu, so he's born... He's 34 years old. I can't work out if that's like younger or older than I thought he would be. He's now playing with Österlen FF in Sweden. Very interesting. Not quite lived up to the promise, has he, Freddie Adu? Where was I? So yeah, DC United, followed by Manchester City, followed by Chelsea. Pretty glamorous. Good opportunity for the Celtic support stateside and those travelling from elsewhere in the world. I've got my bags packed, just waiting on your thousands of pounds coming in for my flights. To go and see the team, but also to see the team in pretty not meaningful, complete wrong word there. Pretty kind of high profile matches, I guess. They're like the opposite of meaningful. They are meaningless fixtures, but you know, still go and get tickets because it'll be cool to see Celtic play against some of the better sides, certainly in England. So yeah, that's pretty good. I guess it's a good warm-up for the team as well ahead of the new season. Just for your information, and it was something going around in my head when I kind of heard news of us going to the States, and obviously we've been to Japan last year, and part of the reason Celtic are doing this in the summer and able to go away big trips is because we don't have Champions League qualifiers. Now, that will still be the case if we manage to win the league this season. We'll go straight into the new Champions League format proper next year. However, if, you know, God forbid, but it is, you know, a possibility we don't win the Premiership this season, we'll go into the third round of qualifying for the UEFA Champions League. And I was looking at the dates for that. That's due to kick off the first week, midweek in August, so 10 days or so after that final match against Chelsea. So that's just how the dates work around, just for your peace of mind, I guess. Right, we're going to move on to news of a Celtic prankster, and if I was to give you 15 guesses about which player is the big prankster in the Celtic first team dressing room, you probably wouldn't get the guy we're talking about, and it's Cameron Carter-Vickers, because he's incredibly reserved, you would say, composed, certainly on the pitch, but it seems like he's got a menacing side, and he enjoys a prank. Now, this has been revealed by Matt O'Reilly, who was doing an interview with Celtic TV, and the topic of, the biggest prank he's ever seen came up, and he kind of dobbed CCV in it. And it's to do with CCV, Stephen Welsh, and his car. O'Reilly quoted as saying, "Cameron Carter-Vickers is a loose cannon. I don't know if everyone knows this, but he is. When it comes to prank, something kind of clicks in his brain, and he's got a real joy about doing it. I think it's between him and Welshie. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. He ended up clamping Welshie's car tyre and driving all the way back home. Welshie went out to his car and saw what had happened, didn't really know what to do. He ended up having to drive all the way to Cam's apartment via an Uber. Cam gave him the keys to get the wheel, and he had to go back." It's not the most riveting story from Matt O'Reilly, I'll admit. No offence to him, he's just regaling what happened between CCV and Welsh. I don't know why I had that in-betweeners kind of moment in my head where I think it's Will's talking about, these guys, they're always doing pranks on me. Oh, what did they do last time? Oh, they just burned my clothes. And it's like, wow, it seems a bit over the top. And that was the vibes I was getting from that there from CCV. I wonder what Stephen Welsh did to him to deserve his car getting clamped. To be honest, I don't totally understand it either. Like, how did he clamp his car, and how was that situation resolved by Stephen Welsh getting an Uber to CCV's house? I guess it's one of those things that we'll just have to live with, not knowing. It is an international break after all. Another thing going on that may be a little bit more interesting for you, and we touched on this slightly yesterday, is the SFA and their head of referee operations, Crawford Allen, announcing that he would leave his post at the end of the season. Now, you all know who Crawford Allen is. He's the guy who comes out on the radio to explain decisions that go in Celtic's favour, but it's nowhere to be seen when decisions go against Celtic, that guy. Now, there are a few other things happening with the governing body, and a lot was shared in an interesting report from the Scottish Sun that came out yesterday. Now, I'll just go through some of the key findings. Some of it may not be very interesting to you, but I'll do my best to make it interesting. Now, they say that SFA Chief Executive Ian Maxwell came under fire from officials, aka referees, at a top-level summit on Sunday. Now, refs are said to have complained that they want greater backing in the face of criticism from managers and players and clubs in general. The mood at this meeting is said to have been, quote, stormy with raised voices. So clearly it was quite a fiery encounter between the officials and, Ian Maxwell, and I think there was someone else from the SFA there as well. Now, Maxwell clearly has been affected by this meeting because he's come out with some interesting quotes, I think, afterwards, saying, while there's a recognition that globally the VAR processes need to improve, this is a challenge for all key stakeholders in Scottish football to work through in the context of our own domestic competition. This includes all key external stakeholders having a better understanding of the laws of the game, the lines of intervention for VAR, and the adopted guidance in Scottish football, especially in subjective areas such as the handball law. We must work together to alleviate unsustainable pressure on match officials and VAR operators to remove the convenient blame culture attached to subjective or unpopular decisions, and to ensure more focus is placed on the entertainers rather than the off-field facilitators. A lot of big words there from Ian Maxwell. Just to break it down, he basically wants the key stakeholders to understand the laws of football better, to understand VAR better and how it gets involved and when it should get involved. And he also wants to alleviate what he calls unsustainable pressure on match officials. Now that's all well and good. He's batting for the referees after getting an earful at that meeting. There doesn't seem to be much accountability from the SFA with regards to the messes, plural, that we've seen, from VAR since its implementation, and there's been so many of them. So yeah, is there an awareness at the SFA that things need to improve? Certainly not from those quotes. They are very much going on the offensive, backing the referees and telling everyone to learn the rules better, learn about VAR better, and stop moaning about referees. Yeah, that'll go down well. The other wee bit of news that came out that's kind of linked to this, very linked actually, is the PFA Scotland are to canvass players and feed their views on VAR back to the SFA. And they'll be doing this through former Celtic forward Craig Beattie. Some would call him a Celtic legend. No, they wouldn't. Craig Beattie, who will be a liaison, as I've been told it's how you say it, with club captains. So Beattie is going to speak to club captains, including Callum McGregor, and those findings will be fed back eventually to the SFA. They're hoping to do that before the end of the season. So will anything come from that? What are players unhappy about with VAR, and will the SFA look to change any of that, or is this just a box ticking exercise? For me, it's quite simple. VAR is far too involved in matches in Scottish football, and I actually think it's more involved in Scottish football than in some other competitions. I think somewhere we've lost this clear and obvious error thing. We've lost our way with that. VAR is only meant to come in for clear and obvious errors. It has now been used for things that are not clear and obvious, as we touched on after Tynecastle. And don't worry, I'm not going back into all of that. So that's the big frustration for me, that VAR is being used too much. It's having too much of an impact on virtually every Scottish football match you watch now. And also the inconsistency. So that's what the SFA really need to work on for me. Hopefully, they're looking at doing that, and maybe Crawford Allen moving on and someone new coming in that role will, improve things. Sometimes fresh blood is what's required to move things forward. I'm not holding my breath, but there's certainly things going on at the moment, and all of this comes before Brendan Rodgers finds out his verdict at some stage, probably over the next couple of weeks, and whether he'll be able to be on the touchline for some big games coming up for us. So, there's lots happening, and it'll be interesting to see what players have to say to Craig Beattie, a guy we all love that never celebrated a 90th minute winner against us by taking his top off and running round the perimeter of Hampden or anything like that. Anyway, I'm definitely not bitter, and I'm definitely annoying myself with the sound of my own voice now. So I'm going to head off. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll be back this time tomorrow to do it all again.